Hey, Walt here from StogieReview.com with another video cigar review. This time around I'm doing kind of a down and dirty little quick first impressions review of the Project 805 Andullo. Now, this isn't technically a first impressions video because this is the second cigar that I have, or the second cigar that I'm smoking. The Ventura was kind enough to send me 2 of the Project 805 and 2 of the Psycho cigars. So I found myself with a little bit of free time tonight. I'm going to be in the car for about an hour, so I thought it was a good a time as any to do a down and dirty review of a cigar that I had 2 of. And I was really confused when I got these cigars in the mail because someone must have spoken with Jerry, and Jerry gave my address to them to send samples, and I wasn't expecting them to show up. However, what I was expecting to show up was an E-Stunner that I won on Twitter from EP Carrillo. So I get this box on my porch, and I'm expecting it to be the E-Stunner. I look at the label really quick, and I thought I saw Lisette, which is what previous EP Carrillo samples have said as far as the shipping from the to from, or for the from field and the shipping information. So at first glance I think, okay, this box is from EP Carrillo. So I get the box, I start opening it up, and I see the Project 805 and the Psycho, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe EP Carrillo saw that I had won, and maybe they're sending me some pre-release stuff to go along with the E-Stunner. I was really confused, and I start reading through the literature, and I'm thinking, this can't possibly be EP Carrillo. There's just too much drama around the backstory of the cigar and the marketing. I'm thinking, oh wow, what is going on here? Well, and then I looked at the shipping label a little bit closer and realized it didn't come from EP Carrillo after all, and everything started coming together. I talked to Jerry, found out where the cigars came from, and I was kind of eager to smoke them after that. I mean, I'm not. If you've got this drama-filled cigar with this big, interesting backstory, which is kind of quirky and kind of gimmicky, I'm probably the last Stogie review person you want to send that cigar to, because I'm more of a traditional, old-school kind of cigar packaging kind of guy. I don't like the gimmick stuff. So, first impressions weren't really great. I saw this as sort of like Camacho did the Black Band project a little while back. I was expecting to go online and find a commercial of Duckface promoting the Project 805, doing these weird videos. But the more I looked at the packaging and read the story, it kind of grew on me, and I became eager to smoke the cigar. I smoked the first one, and I thought it was solid. So here we are, revisiting that first experience and smoking the Project 805 Andullo from Ventura Cigar Company. Now, there was also something else I wanted to tell you. Oh yeah, I have statistics or stats on the cigar as far as sizes available and all that other stuff. I'll put that in the write-up. It's really hard for me to read that sort of thing while I'm driving down the road, so it will be omitted from the video portion because I left it at home. And just check the written portion if you're interested in sizes and makeup and things like that. So I'm going to smoke a little bit more of my cigar, drive a bit further down the road, then I'll kick the camera back on and talk about my first half experience of the Project 805. Well, it's been about 15 minutes, and I'm plugging along on my Project 805, and I thought now was as good a time as any to turn the camera on and talk a little bit about my early impressions of the cigar. Now, one of the important things to note about this is, in the sales literature, they emphasize the aroma of the cigar for whatever reason, and they conjure up that image of it being complex and just dynamic. So immediately I'm not quite sure what to expect out of the cigar. Is it going to have a funky aroma to it? Is it a bit of a twist? Is it a little bit of a gimmick to go with this big dramatized Psycho story, or crazy cigar company story, or what is going on? when you pull it out of the cellophane, you start to smell a little bit of that aroma that's starting to hit the industry lately, in that little bit of a fire-cured kind of aroma. It's kind of smoky, kind of sweet. It's not a real heavy aroma, but immediately, when I smelled it, I'm thinking, okay, this is going to have the funky twist is going to be fire-cured tobacco. It's going to be one of those cigars. Sometimes you hear great stories about fire-cured tobacco being added to cigars, to the blend, and sometimes you hear not so good stories. So I wasn't quite sure what to expect after I smelled that. So I clipped the cigar. I'm getting a little bit more of a predominant, dry-cured-esque sort of smoky, sweet aroma out of the pre-light. And when I lit it up, it didn't carry through, which I thought was interesting. I could smell it, but I couldn't taste it. And I'm getting myself all pumped up. I'm not quite sure what to expect. I'm readying myself for the punch of what smells like fire-cured tobacco, and it never came. So that was kind of interesting that the aroma worked like that. So smoking along, I'm getting a good supply of smoke. It's dense, it coats the palate well. It's a bit dry on the palate though. I want to keep reaching for a bottle of water I have sitting next to me, just to kind of keep my palate moist, because the cigar definitely has a drying effect. As far as the flavors go, I'm driving along and I've got the cigar kind of resting in my mouth, and I'm getting a little bit of this maple syrup kind of flavor. It's mildly sweet, but it has that telltale maple sort of taste / aroma to it, which I thought was pretty interesting. Taking a puff of the cigar, getting a blast of smoke across the palate, I'm getting a woody flavor, some dryness, very little spice, and it's probably medium flavored and medium bodied. So it's not an overwhelming cigar. It's kind of middle of the road in terms of flavor intensity and body is concerned. But it's got an interesting aroma, and the flavors are enjoyable. I mean, there's nothing overly dynamic about them. It's still early yet, so there's lots of room for growth as I smoke along. But so far, it's a solid cigar, and it's off to a decent start. Well, I'm approaching the band on my Project 805, and we're coming down the home stretch of my trip here. So I thought it was fitting that we stop one more time before I make that last wrap-up right before I pull into where I'm going. And talk a little bit about the cigar and some of the changes that I'm seeing. The most notable change is something that I talked about in one of the last reviews I did. A lot of times I like to do a retrohale with no smoke in my mouth to kind of kick up any residual flavor or aroma that's sitting on my palate, kick it up through the sinus and to see what it does. And in the case of this cigar, it's not very pleasant. Sometimes it's a very pleasant experience. Sometimes it's not so pleasant. In the case of the Project 805, it's not very pleasant. It has like a minerally sort of taste. And it's got this sort of charred / mineralness about it, and that blind retrohale, that I don't know, I guess is that even a cigar term, a blind retrohale? But when you do that retrohale with no smoke on the palate, to kind of get a sense of your own breath, I guess is the best way to put it. It's just not cool. It's pretty funky. The smoke, on the other hand, the flavors on the actual smoke are doing pretty good. It's a bit drier on the palate now than it was, which isn't great. I'm more of a rich, creamy smoke sort of guy, and in this case, it's got that drying effect. So it's a bit drier. There's a bit more of a woody flavor on the smoke than there was previously. That little bit of sort of a maple syrupy sweetness, just that maple taste, is becoming a bit more prominent, and it's definitely different than the woody flavor that I'm getting. They seem to be very different tones, so that's kind of interesting. you know, a little bit more sweetness on the palate, a bit of dryness. You know, that's kind of where we're at. You know, not a lot of big changes in the way the cigar tastes or smokes at this point. It's performing pretty well. I scorched the wrapper trying to touch it up going down the road. I've got a little bit of a funky burn going on, and I'm not quite sure whether it's just the way the cigar is burning, or if it's, you know, because I got the window down while I'm driving along. And that's become a minor annoyance, but not a big deal. So it's still a solid cigar. It's performing well. But it's nothing over the top or anything to write home about as of yet. It doesn't have the wow factor that grabs you and makes you want to search out more and buy more down the line. So far, good solid cigar, but you know, nothing really noteworthy as of yet. So we'll see how it goes. I've got maybe another 15 minutes of trip left. We'll wrap this video up in the last clip, which will probably be really short, and you know, we'll go from there. See if it, you know, changes down the home stretch. Well, I'm at my destination. It's time to wrap up my Project 805, and you know, sitting kind of in a car without the air moving and smoke blowing around, it's turned pretty pungent. Really kind of aggravates the sinuses, takes your breath away, makes your eyes water, that kind of thing. That minerally taste has turned really chemical. So I'm really not liking it past the band, and I'm actually going to pitch it now. But leading up to this, you know, it was an interesting start. It had a solid middle ground, but just didn't finish, you know, the way I like it to. So, you know, it's a decent cigar. It's just kind of not really up my alley with the dry flavors or with the dry finish. Aside from that, it's decent. Give the Project 805 a try, and let me know what you think. Thanks for watching.